Hey, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Unpacked. Everything you ever wanted to know about real estate, but were afraid to ask. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is not talked about nearly enough, we believe, is why should you hire a real estate attorney? Today, we have Natasha Selvaraj with Berlin Patten Ebling. Thank you for joining us, our real estate professional. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, the first question that we always talk to our clients on, whether buying or selling, this is one of your largest investments likely that you ever have. Why should you have an attorney in your corner?
Great question. It's almost why not. So in Florida, to use a real estate attorney for a real estate transaction is typically going to cost you the same as using a title company. I know at our firm, our fees are very comparable to what title companies in the market are charging. You just get the added bonus of a real estate attorney like me or one of my wonderful colleagues to work with you through the transaction. So you're getting another set of eyes, actually several sets of eyes on your documents. You're getting someone who's really part of the transaction, looking out for you, working for you, making sure you're protected from contract to close.
Yeah, and we found that here working with Berlin Patten Ebling, a lot of times we can come to you guys to talk to you about the questions that we have. You guys have been very helpful on that. I'd like to ask too is an attorney expensive when you compare it really to the whole of what happens if you miss something?
So it's really not. So apples to apples, just through the closing transactions, assuming that nothing goes wrong, you're going to have comparable costs with some law firms and title companies. It's just our business model with the added benefit of you having an attorney when you're closing through a law firm. When you compare what that might cost you versus something going wrong and then you having to call a real estate attorney either mid-transaction because something comes up that you need resolved in order to close, whether it's on the buy or sell side, or even post-closing, once you've closed and you realized something didn't get done, something needs to get done, it was missed, whatever, that cost is going to be incrementally higher, or exponentially higher rather. You're going to have those billable hours that everybody dreads where every question, every document, every review is going to cost you something versus having that attorney representation through the transaction where they're reviewing documents for you, we're communicating with you, answering your questions, all for a flat fee. So slightly partial, but I think that it's a no-brainer, and having that for basically the same cost is such a good way to protect one of your biggest, investments or purchases.
For sure. One of the things that we've always said, Linda and myself as the Polo team, is it is having the foresight to look at something now and prevent something, an accident or something that might be missed if you were doing it on your own, is much less expensive than to hire somebody afterwards, as you said, billable hours. We believe in that fully, to do that, because the average consumer buying a home or selling a home may not know some of the pitfalls to avoid. And I think that's where, when we talk about using a real estate attorney in there, do you find them, I can probably guess the answer, but do you find them to delay the process, really prolong it, having an attorney involved, or really being quite a little bit more proactive than reactive?
So I will say that the answer depends. With any profession, you're going to have some people that make it a little hard for you to do your job. But I will say overall, as a whole, having a real estate attorney is not going to necessarily be a detriment to your closing. It's going to be someone who can work alongside whoever your team is, your lender, your realtor, your buyer, your seller, to make sure that we're getting to closing timely, because it's just as important to us as everybody else that those contract deadlines are respected.
Meeting those deadlines.
And then making sure that everybody's protected along the way. And yeah, we might have an issue and there might be a reason for delay, but having that attorney on the team in advance is going to give you the opportunity to kind of weigh the pros and cons. Is this something that's worth making an issue out of, or is it something so minor that it really doesn't matter? And being able to have someone who's already looking for that as you're going through the process versus someone who's going to find it the day before closing because you suddenly decided to get someone involved, or God forbid the day after closing when it's a little too late to fix something.
Yes.
It's going to make it just a little easier.
Yeah, and again, I think it goes back to that one of those things that we've said often, that you don't call the fire department once the house is burned down. You call the first sign of smoke. And that's really where, in this, your realtors are not your legal advice. We say that often, and we want to turn to the professionals, yourself, and use people like Natasha and Berlin Patten Ebling to help us facilitate any of these reasonably foreseeable events. And heaven forbid there's a surprise that's in there too, to get through the transactions seamlessly, or as seamlessly as possible.
Absolutely. And that's what we do. That's a big focus of my practice, is making sure people can get from signing a contract to closing seamlessly, painlessly, and hopefully without issue.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the things that we walk through in the process too, how do you integrate working with your agents in the process? For us, well, you tell us what you kind of really like to work with.
I like to think that we work as a team. We're there to answer questions even before you have a fully executed contract. So we're here to be a person, a resource that can answer the what happens if I don't get my loan approval? What happens if the property doesn't appraise? What happens if we do our inspection and we find that the AC doesn't work, or there's a leak in the pool? And to be able to answer those questions from a legal perspective, as well as, the more practical aspect of all of that as well, but to really work with everybody on that team to get the transaction closed without losing sight of the fact that we're representing someone's interests, and it's not just about getting the deal closed, but about making sure everybody is truly getting what they're supposed to be.
Exactly, and we couldn't agree more with having those professionals in our corner. We say are using our team to facilitate a transaction anytime we have it, whether it's having the legal expert, whether it's having our inspectors there, anybody that we need. We like to know that we have those people, those professionals that can help us get this to the closing, because everybody's got the same goal. One person wants to buy, one wants to sell. And having yourself in there is great. So thank you very much for all your help on that. When it comes to new construction, do you find that it happens that they use real estate attorneys as much on new construction? How does that differ a little bit?
So with new construction, it really depends. I would almost say that it's more important to have a real estate attorney and a realtor when you're buying new construction, because those contracts tend to be written by the builder's attorney for the builder. It benefits the builder. It has clauses typically that give them flexibility in the closing date, with the punch list, with substitution of materials, just to name a couple things that I typically end up talking to people about. But having someone review that contract and provide buyers with an understanding of what they're signing, and then having that legal guidance through the closing process, which tends to be a little longer in most cases. With new construction, you might not be looking at 30 or 60 days, you might be looking at 6 months or a year, sometimes even longer. I think really does make a difference, because for a lot of people, that home buying process or home building process is exciting and new, and there's a lot of fun stuff that goes into it, but it can be stressful if you're not prepared and not working with a team of professionals, because you might not know that there's language in there that does something that might be different than what you anticipate, or different than what the experience your neighbor had, because so much is impacted by market conditions and things like that. So having an attorney in your corner, even if they can't change the contract, to be able to explain the contract to you and make sure that it works with your goals and your intentions is so important.
Yeah, agreed. Having those people there, and again, people that are going to be fighting for you in your corner. We've gone through this with several direct experiences of people. Does everybody use their own personal inspector because they think, oh, it's a new home, I don't have to worry about this? We will still recommend it, because there's no such thing as a perfect home. There's always something that might be wrong, and for a couple dollars, it would be worth your peace of mind to sleep easy at night when looking at those things.
I do always recommend the inspection on the new construction too, and that's one of the things that we typically try to negotiate into the contract if it's not built in, because like you said, no home is perfect. We're all human. There's going to be some element of human error in everything that we do, but making sure that they have the opportunity to correct them at the appropriate time, rather than have to wait, maybe extend past a warranty, whatever other thing that could go wrong, but you want to try to minimize those issues.
Indeed, and one of the things that we found very important, especially in the new construction, was having people get the home the way it's promised to be delivered at the time of closing. Not, hey, we'll get to it after we get closed, just to sign off. We've had them try to do stuff like that on occasion. It's not the norm, but there are problems that may come up and say, hey, we didn't get the right door. Oh, we'll get this afterwards. Well, it's gonna be a lot tougher to get it afterwards, as opposed if you have an attorney who's gonna say, no, we're gonna do this now, or we're not gonna be able to make it to close.
And
we'll close a little later, but we gotta get it done.
Yeah, and I think that's true about any transaction. If you think about it, it's like, well, once you give the seller their money, they're not super incentivized to continue to give you what you want or to make it a priority. But when they're in it with you and they're like, I don't get my money until this happens, you might get things a little faster. And so being able to negotiate that, whether it's a builder seller or, just a resale seller, trying to make sure that we don't give away too much leverage for our clients. And on the flip side, being able to say from a seller's perspective, this is minor, this isn't something that should hold up a transaction, kind of finding that balance.
Right. And so I think really kind of taking a look at overall for attorneys here, Florida is not an attorney required state. We've worked, Linda and myself, the Polo team are licensed here in Florida and Illinois. Illinois is an attorney state, still not required, but it is used primarily there. Again, I think one of the great things is protecting your largest investment. What kind of price do you put on something like that, and avoiding some of the pitfalls that you can run into it? I think that's tremendous for us to be able to do. So I think it's worthy. We firmly believe that it's worthy of having somebody like yourself in our corner.
I think so too.
So I think really for us, hey, thanks for joining us today. This has been Real Estate Unpacked. Special thanks to Natasha Selvaraj with Berlin Patten Ebling. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we can't emphasize enough having the right professionals in your corner, your team, to help you out through the process can save you a lot of headaches going down the line. So if you've liked this, if you found some value in this, please like and share this. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Polo Team, Real Estate Unpacked. Everything you ever wanted to know about real estate, but we're afraid to ask. Thank you again. Have a great day. Look forward to talking to you again soon.